do that again. Another day, another dollar, another. Oh man, I really thought I don't know. I think it was probably early in the day today. We realized it wasn't going to be a normal show.
Yeah,
it kind of started to feel like, yeah, something's going to happen, and then obviously something did. In case you're living under a rock, as of right now, what time is it? We've got 7:06 p.m. Jim Harbaugh is currently suspended and will not coach tomorrow.
Yeah.
I guess, do we think that's going to last? And how crazy has this 12 hours been? I guess we're driving for 4.5. We get some food. All this stuff kind of starts. It's just been, I mean, dude, it's been another whirlwind of all this crap, and like here we are again, just dealing with stuff not pertaining to what could and should be an awesome game.
Yeah, well, I think that was everybody sort of knew and had a pretty good instinct that this is where everything was headed in terms of, what the Big Ten was going to do. Obviously, they issued their notice of a punishment. I think it was on Monday. Michigan had 48 hours to respond. They responded on Wednesday. And, based on Michigan's response, there was some belief that, the Big Ten might waffle, that they might sort of backtrack and not do anything. And then as the week went on, it became pretty apparent that Tony Petitti and the Big Ten were going to move forward with some sort of punishment. And now you're right. The biggest question is, is Jim Harbaugh on the sideline? And, by all accounts, the University of Michigan officials knew that this suspension was coming. They were prepared for it to move with legal action to get an injunction so that Jim Harbaugh would be able to remain on the sidelines and coach for at least the remainder of the regular season. But again, you're talking about a Friday on a holiday. Does that slow up the process at all? Does it make it a little bit more complicated? I don't know. This is uncharted territory. It's something that, neither one of us have ever experienced before, where, a Big Ten conference comes out and says, okay, the head coach is suspended, and the team and the university response is to take legal action that could result in the suspended coach being on the sideline. And then, of course, Brandon and I were talking about this when we went to dinner, but how does Penn State respond to that? How does James Franklin respond to that if, technically Jim Harbaugh is suspended, but he's there in the stadium, coaching his team? I just think it sets up a really strange and awkward scenario that nobody has really experienced before, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out tomorrow.
Yeah, and we're sitting in the lobby in the hotel where we're staying in beautiful Clarion, Pennsylvania. Hour and a half outside of Happy Valley, unless we wanted to pay, what was it, $1,500 for a room?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So we decided to have a little bit of a drive in the morning, but so that's why we're sitting how we're sitting, and so far the internet seems to be cooperating, so that's a good thing. And but yeah, it's been weird. We're driving in and we're getting like updates of nothing pretty much. I mean, there were people like, oh, nothing's happened yet, and then they're literally in flight.
Yeah,
like Jim Harbaugh and his team are on the airplane flying to Pennsylvania when the announcement comes through that he has been suspended. And then like you just explained, now we're hearing terms like restraining order and the injunction and all this stuff, and it's just like, what the hell is this? Like, what is this? And I've been saying it for a couple of days now. I can't remember who said it. Someone on the radio was quoted as saying, or maybe something we watched when we got here. I'm not defending Tony Petitti because this is like such a chicken shit move that he pulled off here at the 12th, 11th hour. He can't win. Like whether he suspended Jim Harbaugh, that was going to suck for him and what was going to go on between him and Michigan and the Big Ten. If he decided to do nothing, all the other coaches and programs and athletic directors were going to hate him. He's probably done. I mean, like a lot of people are assuming he's not even going to make it to like the 1 year mark and he's going to be fired and removed, and it's just an absolute mess. And now again, yes, instead of talking about what really should be one of the better football games of the season tomorrow, it's more of this. But I see, tons of people in the comments, typing the word bet just like all the players were.
Yeah.
We're hoping, and everybody that's a Michigan fan and everybody that's following the team, that this will galvanize the team, whether Harbaugh's on the sideline or not. But we talked about this on the way in too. Like somebody said, Sharon Moore calls the majority of the plays on offense. Jesse Minter calls the majority of the plays or all the plays on defense. Harbaugh certainly has a hand in that. But when you get down to that 4th and 4 situation, I have full confidence in Sharon Moore and the other coaches on that staff to make those right decisions. I think everybody's obviously hoping that Jim Harbaugh is standing on the sidelines tomorrow. But if he's not, I don't know. How big of a deal is it if he can't be there?
I mean, I think it's obviously a blow to the team in certain aspects, but at the end of the day, I mean, you can see it in the way the team's responded. They've embraced this Michigan versus everybody mentality. You can see the player response on social media once the news broke, and I think that no matter what side of this you're on, whether or not you were advocating for Michigan to be allowed due process and to allow the NCAA investigation to play out, or if you were on the other side that was begging and screaming and pounding for the table for the Big Ten to take some sort of action, I don't think that there's much dispute that the way that this was handled by the Big
Correct.
Ten has been absolutely irresponsible. It's been a complete joke. And that's a big part of the reason why this thing became what it became over the last 2 weeks. It's just been, slow leaks out into the media, a lot of speculation, a lot of rumor, and a lot of things got played out in the media before an investigation was ever complete. And then, again, you have Commissioner Petitti having conference calls with coaches around the league, having conference calls with athletic directors, meeting with university presidents. And I agree with the general mindset that it does seem that this was a move that he was pressured into making.
Yes,
This to me
no doubt.
doesn't scream of, and even in the statement that they put out, they were very clear from the Big Ten that we do not yet have evidence connecting Jim Harbaugh to anything that occurred, yet we're going to go ahead and suspend him anyway for the final 3 games of the regular season. To me, it's just like I said, no matter what side of this you're on, the entire process has been sloppy, and I think it is a terrible look for Tony Petitti, a terrible look for the Big Ten, and this thing is not over yet.
No.
This thing is just getting started. The University of Michigan, in the statement that they put out to the Big Ten, made clear that if any action was taking place, specifically as it relates to a Jim Harbaugh suspension, that they would respond legally, and they also referenced certain things that other programs were doing and certain things that they were aware of that was happening around the league. I think Tony Petitti made a huge mistake here, not getting out in front of this thing, letting it drag on, letting the narrative grow, and then making a decision that seems like it was basically a forced decision on pressure that he was facing from within the league, as opposed to let's do the right thing here, let's let due process play out, and then we'll follow whatever the NCAA does. I think he's put in a tough spot now, and I think that you're going to see this get pretty ugly within the Big Ten pretty quick.
Well, I was going to read the second. So Michigan had obviously some stuff to say beforehand, and then the announcement came out that Jim Harbaugh was suspended, and then there was a statement after. And the second paragraph of that, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Commissioner Petitti's hasty action today suggests that this is more about reacting to pressure from other conference members than a desire to apply the rules fairly and impartially. By taking this action at this hour, the commissioner is personally inserting himself onto the sidelines and altering the level playing field that he is claiming to preserve, and doing so on Veterans Day, a court holiday, to try to thwart the university from seeking immediate judicial relief is hardly a profile in impartiality. To ensure fairness in the process, we intend to seek a court order together with Coach Harbaugh preventing this disciplinary action from taking effect. I mean, like that's as direct as it gets, saying, what the hell are you doing, dude? I mean, that's essentially what that was saying.
Right.
He acted because he was pressured, bullied, scared of whatever. But it's just, you can't. I don't know how a governing body can handle something like that, because again, in the one of the earlier reports, I believe, from the NCAA, black and white, we found nothing to link Coach Harbaugh to any of the things that happened with the sign stealing allegations. So it's just I don't even understand how you get to this conclusion, except for he just cowered under what everybody else was yelling at him to do.
Sure, and the idea, and there's actually you can see pictures of it that are floating around social media. But the idea that the Big Ten would wait to issue this punishment while the Michigan football team is in the air on the plane on their way to Pennsylvania, to me is just it's further proof, further evidence that the way this entire thing has been handled from start to finish has just been very sloppy. And look, I get it. This wasn't a situation that Tony Petitti expected to be in during his first year as Big Ten commissioner, but this is what comes with the territory and being able to handle these types of scenarios effectively. And you see the response out on social media and in the news that you really got the sense here that he was in over his head, did not know what to do, and decided to act based on pressure from, let's be honest, the people within the conference that were advocating for action to be done. It's not like they're not going to benefit from that in some way, shape, or form if Michigan is out of the picture. Now, I'm not going to get all conspiracy theory here because I think there's enough of that out there. But at the end of the day, if you have followed this entire process from start to finish, like I said, no matter what side of it you stand on, I don't think anybody's looking at Tony Petitti in the Big Ten saying, okay, you handled this the right way. And that's my biggest takeaway. And now the question is Jim Harbaugh on the sideline? Is he in that stadium tomorrow? And if he is, this is just, again, I'm not even sure how to cover something like this because there's no precedent for it. It's uncharted waters. And I'm just, all the while we're talking about a top 10 matchup tomorrow. And that's the other thing I brought up to Brandon that I want to say really quickly. And again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, but before the season, everybody looked at Michigan's schedule and they knew this game was the game. This was when Michigan's season was really going to kick in. This was going to be their first big test. And it just seems a little convenient to me that the way this all played out ultimately ended with a 3-game suspension that is coincidentally at the same point in time that Michigan's supposed to start the most important stretch of their entire season. It just feels a little bit too convenient to me. Again, nobody has any idea who the investigative firm was that even brought this information to the NCAA in the first place. This is just, and you've seen it out there, people that are reporting it. If you think you've seen, for as crazy as this has been with Connor Stallions and his background and weird LLCs that could be linked to Blake Corum and disguises and all this other weird shit, if you think you have seen everything that is going to occur, I think there's so much more that's going to come out. And I think the reason for that largely is because of the action that the Big Ten took today.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, we were sitting at dinner talking, and you brought that point up. You're like, isn't it weird how, everybody knew it was this week. It was, November 11th, that game against Penn State. And that's when, and I'm like, and dude, how about they did it right up to, you're talking 10, 11 weeks into the football season and 20 hours before the kickoff is when, it's almost like they couldn't let it get any closer.
Correct.
Like it couldn't get any closer to pulling this string before the game started, which we don't really want to do the conspiracy theory thing, but that's crazy. And again, to do it while he's in the air on the way to his game. I mean, you've seen, this was another thing I was going to say. You brought up the point about all these different people are now talking about different angles. And it's a lot of people really without a dog in the fight. People that didn't go to Michigan that just cover sports nationally, locally, whatever it is. And they're bringing up a lot of good points. Like Tony Petitti is clamoring about the safety of players and the competitive advantage. And then someone, I forget who it was, but you take the head coach away 12 hours before the game. What kind of a competitive advantage is that for Penn State now? There's the way that he's, the way that things have been written, the statements that have been put out, and then the action to follow, it doesn't really add up.
Yeah.
It's just weird in a lot of different ways. And and I saw somebody else say, I think it was just a random person on Twitter, not like a media person, but you'd have to think, because Michigan was very prepared for this to happen, that for Jim Harbaugh to even get on the plane and come here, he's got to feel like he's coaching tomorrow. Because the way that he can't be at the venue. Yeah. So if his team gets on buses and goes to Beaver Stadium, Harbaugh's going to Applebee's, I guess, or
or staying at the team hotel or whatever it is. But
Triple R Roadhouse, maybe,
sure,
but it's just strange that that might literally be what he has to do is his team leaves and goes off to play, and he has to just hang back and chill.
Yeah, and I think a part of that is I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be some sort of legal expert. I don't know how long it takes to get an injunction and how long it takes for something for that to take effect. And I also don't know, and Brandon and I talked about this a little bit, but you're talking about the Big Ten Conference, which can essentially operate on its own. And I'm not sure, like, if you're going through a legal battle, if the Big Ten Conference has to adhere to whatever process you're going through legally. Like, I just don't know how all that works. But what I know is that the process has been sloppy. It's going to get even more sloppy. There's going to be even more mud that's thrown, not just in Michigan's direction, but now there's going to be other teams and other programs implicated as well. And what Tony Petitti did tonight and today by issuing this punishment, he's now going to be in a position to where if there is valid evidence that some of this stuff is going on in other programs, he is going to have to act immediately this season with equal punishment. And that means Purdue, that means Ohio State, potentially Rutgers. And I just think this, and we talked about this on the show before, I don't know that this is a place where you want college football to be, where you can go out, you can hire a private investigative firm, and you can dig up dirt on a rival program in an effort to derail their season. I mean, this is something that we could see now. It's worked against Michigan. We could see it year in and year out from here on out. And I think it just it tarnishes the game and the experience of what we all love about college football. But here's where we are. Nobody expected to be here at this point. And now the question is, how's Michigan going to respond? Will Jim Harbaugh be in the building tomorrow? And how, more importantly, will the team respond on the field? And I think that's kind of where I want to transition this conversation to, because for all the oxygen that Connor Stallions and Tony Petitti and Jim Harbaugh and this entire situation is taking out of the room, the reality is that these players are locked in. And you can see it on social media. They're taking this personally. They are excited to get into that stadium. It doesn't matter who's standing on the sidelines coaching this team tomorrow. The Michigan Wolverines are going to be on the field tomorrow. And I think based on what's played out, and Tony Petitti has a big hand in it now, I'd hate to be Penn State. I know Penn State's going to go into this game motivated. I know that they think that they can win this football game, but there is not a team in the country right now that is angrier and more motivated than this Michigan football team. And oh, by the way, they also happen to be arguably the most talented and most dominant team in the country. So when you put all that together, I think we're going to see for Michigan tomorrow what we've seen for most of the season, which is complete dominance from start to finish. Handle your business, get out, move to the next week.
Yeah, I mean, they're again, all the social media posts started popping up. I mean, guys who I haven't seen JJ McCarthy use Twitter in I don't know how long, but it's on Twitter, it's on Instagram. It's just they're trying to get as much kind of unity and, like I said, galvanizing the team a little bit. And we've talked about this before, and I know other radio shows have talked about it. It's been talked about on TV, all the outlets. What kind of an effect does this have on the players? Because it's certainly having one. I mean, there's no question. And I think with the leadership and the kind of players that they have and the kind of guys that they have running the show and in charge on the team itself, it's going to be motivating. It's going to piss them off. It's going to make them want to play harder. It's going to make them want to play for their coach, whether Harbaugh is standing over there or not. And yeah, without all this stuff going on, Michigan's one of the best teams in the country. The quarterback situation, obviously, the two-headed monster at running back, the experienced O-line, all the depth on defense. We've talked about that 1,000 times. And now they want to kill everybody that they play, even more than they already do, because no one thinks that they can do it without whatever their secret weapon or the codes or whatever the signs. I mean, whatever it ends up being. And now they feel like they're being personally attacked. You saw them getting on the plane today with the Michigan versus everybody shirts. That's pretty newly implemented, obviously, with all this going on. And I mean, dude, they're going to have to settle it between the lines. That's the bottom line right now. Tomorrow at noon, inside Beaver Stadium, it's going to be Michigan and Penn State. And I just think Michigan's the better team. Yeah. I mean, I've thought that all along, whether this stuff was going on or not. I know earlier on in the year, you kind of circled this game as maybe the tougher one. Yeah. But then Penn State didn't look that great a lot of times out. Ironically, they probably played their best game of the year last week on the road at Maryland. They won 51-15. Drew Aller threw 4 touchdown passes. He hadn't done that all year. And they are a talented team, but if Michigan's ever wanted one, this is the one. And they know what the goal is. They'll move to 10-0. They'll be in the driver's seat for the Big Ten championship and the driver's seat for the playoff, and away we go. And that's another, kind of strange thing. I'm not trying to get back into all the Harbaugh stuff and the ruling again, but the way everything has been worded and how it is right now. So serve these 3, and we'll check in with you again at the postseason and see if we need to do some more. Another. Just what the hell is that about? Like, I've never seen it.
Yeah, another perfect example of how this is so sloppy. Like, I don't you make such a drastic decision to implement a suspension now at this point in the season. And not only do you do that, but you also leave the door open to there may be more coming after this. It's like now you're going to piecemeal your approach as far as how you're going to punish Harbaugh and the football team. The whole thing just seems ridiculous. But like Brandon and I just said, at the end of the day, the Michigan Wolverines will be in Beaver Stadium tomorrow. They're going to play that football game. I've got a pretty good feeling they're going to be highly motivated to go out and make yet another statement. And we've seen how that works in games like that. Just ask Michigan State what it's like to play a Michigan team that wants to make a statement. Ask Purdue. Ask anybody else on the schedule so far. And sure, you can lean back on the fact that they haven't played anybody. They're going to play somebody tomorrow. And I think that whole narrative about, well, who have they played? That's going to go away in emphatic fashion tomorrow. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get to the stadium, excited to see if Jim Harbaugh is going to show up, and excited to see how that entire game plays out, because we've been waiting for this one for a long time, man. Since before the season started, this one's been circled, and it's finally here tomorrow. So.
Yeah, it's another thing I've been talking about. Yeah, we've talked a lot about it, and other people have talked a lot about how Michigan hasn't played anybody. I mean, Penn State hasn't played. They played one good team and lost, right? I mean, like, okay, they started the season against West Virginia and did win that game pretty handily. It was at home, and nobody really knew exactly what to expect from West Virginia. But yeah, I'll give them credit. That's a Power 5 opponent to start your season off when you're trying to figure out what your team's all about. You've got a young quarterback starting for the first time. Like, cool, but it's just crazy how everybody is so up in arms about Michigan's schedule and who they've played and who they haven't played. And it's like, dude, it's not their fault that 6 of the Big Ten teams they've played have been dog shit. Like, what is Michigan supposed to do about that? Non-conference schedule, cool, fine, not good. It's also a month and a half ago. Like, we're beyond that at this point. And yes, tomorrow is going to be the best test that Michigan has had. I think that's the same for Penn State.
Yeah.
I know they played Ohio State. I don't care. I think Michigan's a better team, and they're going to get tested by Michigan tomorrow in a way that they did not by Ohio State. Certainly at quarterback, certainly I think in the secondary, and you could probably go down the lines and pick and choose. Certainly Ohio State has some talent on the pass rushing side of things. They've got some offensive linemen who are going to play in the league. But overall, Penn State's playing its best opponent tomorrow too. And I don't care who Michigan has played. When you win every single week by 30, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Almost every other team in the top 5, top 10 has had a stumble here, a stumble there, a close game against an inferior opponent, or a loss against another good team. Michigan doesn't have any of that stuff. So I just get sick of people saying that when it's like, what do you want Michigan to do? Just like not play against those teams because they're not good enough? I don't really understand what the argument is there. But
yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. Like, if you're angry about the fact that Michigan has had to play Indiana, Michigan State, Rutgers.
Right.
I mean, your issue isn't with Michigan; it's with these other programs not being good enough to compete. But that's a separate topic altogether. The bottom line is that this is a game.
But I'd like to thank these yahoos in here who are not Michigan fans, though.
Why?
Cool on a Friday. I mean, maybe go touch grass, dude. Go do something cool, or stay. Money in our pocket. We're cool with it. Lots of it. Just hang out. That's fine. Give all your comments all you want. No one cares. But hey, I see the comments. Enjoy the show.
But at the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't matter. The game will be played tomorrow. The players will be on the field. And I saw somebody say it that, if Michigan wins in a dominant fashion, that they're going to move the goalpost, that it turns out, well, I guess Penn State wasn't as good as we all thought. And that can be expected. But the bottom line is that Penn State is a top 10 team. This is a top 10 matchup, and Michigan hasn't been in that scenario. And then when you got to go into Happy Valley, when you got to play at Beaver Stadium, that's not an easy place to win a football game. And so I think when you put those factors together, regardless of what you think about Penn State, that Michigan goes out and performs the way that they have performed over the first 9 weeks, you can't take any sort of win away from them in that way. And then from there on out, I think it's a strong case that this is the best team in the country. And based on the wording and what we saw from the Big Ten Conference, whatever you think about Tony Petitti and the Big Ten, the way that they worded part of that punishment was something to the effect of allowing the players to continue to compete. So even though Jim Harbaugh is serving some sort of punishment, they also want to make sure that the players can continue to compete. And so I think there's some good news. There is a bit of a silver lining there for Michigan fans and for the team, is that it doesn't sound like the Big Ten is interested in taking Michigan off the field this year. Whatever it is they're going to do with Harbaugh, they're going to do, but it doesn't sound like they're going to try to prevent them from playing for a Big Ten championship like some analysts, national analysts have called for. Doesn't seem like they're going to try to – well, actually, the Big Ten can't prevent them from playing in the college football playoff. So I think if you're a Michigan fan and you want to see this team win a Big Ten championship and you want to see them play for a national championship, even with the action taken from the conference today, certainly looks like all of that is still on the table. So
just real quick here, by the way, we just talked about Penn State beating West Virginia. Okay, decent win. West Virginia is 6-3. They lost to Houston, they lost to Oklahoma State, and they lost to Penn State. That's their 3 losses. Okay, not bad. I think they actually lost to – did I say Oklahoma State? Yeah, there's their 3 losses. Here's who Penn State has beat. That West Virginia team, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, who's an offensive powerhouse, by the way. They score about 1.5 points a game. Northwestern, UMass, and Indiana. And then Maryland last week, which Maryland has been pretty good this year, and they beat them 51-15. I will give props where props are due in that game. It was also in College Park, so that's worth noting. And then they lost to Ohio State. Yeah. There's nobody out there talking about Penn State's schedule. Delaware, UMass,
but again, they've played a
Illinois, Northwestern won and they lost.
But the point is they played the game. That's what it is. Michigan hasn't had that opponent. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what you think about Michigan's schedule or even what you think of Penn State. It's a top 10 team. They'll have it on their resume. The conversation ends tomorrow regardless.
Yeah, it's just
if Michigan gets the win, that narrative is over.
It's always such a funny thing. It's almost that we've seen that. I remember that it comes up in the college football playoff rankings all the time. It's almost like sometimes teams get more credit for losing a game than winning games against not so good teams.
Yeah,
it's like they lost. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I mean, you've heard it before. What's the difference between a good loss and a bad win?
Yeah.
Playing that's the nature of the college football playoff, at least for this year. As we expand into 12 teams next year, it's not going to be as big of a deal. But, I mean, to be quite honest, and we've talked about this before, I'm exhausted with the topic.
Yeah.
And it continues to go on and continues to evolve every single day. There's a new wrinkle, a new fold. What we know for sure tomorrow is Michigan will be in the building and they're going to play that football game. All the other outside stuff we'll cover and we'll figure it out along the way. But in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. It's about these players. They're prepared. They've got captains across the board, leaders across the board, veteran guys, NFL guys. They're ready to play this football game. And I think they're going to come out on top tomorrow. I really do. I think it's going to be just more of what we've seen from this team for the first 9 weeks in every facet of the game, offensively, defensively. They just seem to have the upper hand.
Yeah. Do anybody out there watching the Michigan basketball game? No Big Ten Network here at the beautiful Quality Inn in Clarion. So anyway,
no BTN.
No. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody's even paying attention to it. I tried to find it, couldn't find it. But I mean, do we want to do some predictions? I mean, do we want to talk the game a little bit? We're half an hour in. I know this is. I just don't know what else to say about it at this point.
I don't know. I mean,
I feel like we've said what we've said. We're now waiting for the next shoe to drop.
I would say let's give a score prediction and call it a night.
Score prediction, call it a night.
That's where I'm at.
Short show tonight, then.
Short show.
Call it a short. I mean, dude, I see people and they're saying, we're exhausted about. I mean, we got over 800 people in here though. Should we give them what the people want? I mean, we could stay on a little longer.
We can.
I don't know. Let's see what are the people saying? What are the people saying? Short show for you boys while we do a little prediction and get out of here and maybe get some work done or just relax and get ready for the day tomorrow. Or do we want to dive into at least one more segment where we make a couple predictions and talk the game?
Look at that.
We'll see a couple of answers and then we'll go from there. I paid for this. Who said that? We actually did have a couple stars here too. So thank you, Lee. Yeah, that's kind of the team tagline at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not on a shirt at some point. Thank you for that donation. Gary Klein. Look, this is another. I saw a lot of people asking about this. Is Michigan now going to leave the Big Ten? Seems like a shove in that direction. I mean, that Michigan not being in the Big Ten is like the most foreign sounding thing I can think of. But this was handled so horribly by the conference and the commissioner that if something was going to get that ball rolling, this would be it. And then thank you, Clayton. They claim it doesn't matter if Harbaugh was involved or knew. He said it's his program, and I mean, It's a weirdly written bylaw where it's not institutional control, but it was something along those lines.
Well, my understanding is that's an NCAA thing,
not a Big Ten thing. That's right. So for the Big Ten to kind of jump in and do this all prematurely. Okay, Michigan basketball up 46-23 at the half. There you go. So I'm cruising to another easy one, it looks like, and that's to be expected against, I forget who they're playing. Youngstown State? I think that's right. Anyway, so what did we say? Are we getting out of here with some predictions, or people want to really sit and talk about this game for a little bit? Let them cheating. Okay, go on. Talk some football. Keep it going. Rest up. Thank you, Bobby. Let's talk the game. Talk the Big Ten.
I mean, we
Thank
did kind
you.
of talk the game a little bit, right? How we think it's going to go.
We are not at an Airbnb. We are at a hotel about an hour outside of Happy Valley State College, whatever you want to call it. Keep calling it Happy Valley. It's not actually what it's called. Let's take a dive, baby. Let's get some predictions. You're getting me hyped up. I don't know. What do you think, dude? What do you think? 800 people in here, dude.
I think we give our prediction and get out.
All right.
That's where I'm at. I'm over it.
It does take the wind out of your sails a little bit. It definitely takes the wind out of your sails. We both think Michigan's going to win.
Yeah.
Whether Jim Harbaugh is standing there or not, I think Michigan's the better team. I know they have the better quarterback. That's huge in college football. I think Michigan is. I do think the trenches is going to be good. It's going to be a battle in there. But Penn State has the best singular lineman in the game, arguably. Zach Zinner's probably the best interior lineman. Olu Fashanu is probably the best tackle in the country. So splitting hairs there. And then the same thing on the defensive line. Michigan's got all that depth, all those guys that can make plays. Penn State's got several guys that Michigan recruited. They've got talent. They've got a very athletic, fast linebacker. I still can't remember his name. He's number 11. I think it's going to be a pretty entertaining game, and this is obviously going to be the closest matchup of athletes that Michigan has faced this year. I just think Michigan's better, and I think James Franklin's a dipshit. I mean, that's part of it too. I have 31-13. I actually think Michigan's going to win this thing by 2 touchdowns. I think they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit. I do think Penn State's going to try to take that away, and I think they're going to face the wrath of JJ, and he's going to carve them up.
Yeah,
that's what I think. I think he's head and shoulders better than he was last year. I know Michigan ran for 1 billion yards on him last year, so he didn't have to throw it that much in Ann Arbor. But I just think, like, after I've been watching JJ all year now, if a team is saying we're going to take away the run, let's see if JJ can be. You're asking for trouble with that.
Yeah.
So I think whatever way they try to go, Michigan's going to have an answer for them, and I just don't think that Penn State can do it back.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I'm a little bit conflicted on this is you're talking about the 2 best defensive units in college football, statistically speaking, in total defense. Michigan at number 1, Penn State at number 2. But I think a little bit of that goes away tomorrow. We talked about how both of these teams, neither Penn State or Michigan, has allowed a single point in the third quarter. I think that ends tomorrow, potentially for both teams. And for Penn State, in order for Penn State to win this game, I think that they are going to have to score more than 24 points, and I think they're going to have to keep Michigan from scoring 24 points. And I just don't see that being the case. For me, whoever just said that, whatever your name is, you don't actually have a name, 38-17, that's my prediction. I think Michigan is going to be on a mission. I think they're going to be consistent. I think they're going to control the clock. I think maybe Penn State gets another touchdown late to make the score look a little more respectable. But 38-17 at the end of the day, that's what I'm going with.
38-17 would be a 21-point win over the number 9 team in their building.
And
I've got them winning by 18, 31-13. Yeah. So, I mean, not a big discrepancy in the point differential, just a slightly different total. I just think Michigan's better. I think when you go group by group, position by position, how clean Michigan's played all year when it comes to penalties and just tempo and taking care of the ball, which – again, credit where credit's due. Drew Aller has 1 interception on the season.
Yeah.
1.
Yep.
That's very impressive for a young quarterback. He hasn't thrown it a ton, but that's an impressive mark to be 8-1, to have played a couple of teams that are okay, and to have only 1 turnover is an impressive mark. I think Michigan will take it away from him a couple times tomorrow, whether it's a pick or a fumble from somebody. I think Michigan will win the turnover battle because they're just really good at taking care of the ball, and I think that's huge on the road, obviously. So, I mean, both of us you got them with a 3-touchdown win in Happy Valley.
Yep.
3-touchdown win. I've got them with just a shade under that 31-13. I mean, we'll see. I don't. What do we? Okay, last thing. We'll put a bow on this and we'll get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to find out and when about Harbaugh, the injunction, the restrict? Like when is that going to happen? Because we're now, as we've been told, on Friday night of a holiday.
Yeah.
But apparently Michigan's got judges and court people working overtime. It's crazy.
I would assume it's going to be the same as what it's been throughout this entire process, which is slow leaks. You might see something on some message boards first. Then it'll go to ESPN, and then at some point you'll get an official statement before the game. I don't think that we're going to see anything definitively before more. I mean, but then again, who knows? Something could come out at midnight.
I know. I don't.
To be honest, I don't even know what time it is right now. It gets dark earlier now.
It's now sure. It's 7:40 p.m.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, who the hell knows? We're almost 8 o'clock. We still don't know unless something's been updated that we're unaware of. My gut instinct tells me. My gut tells me that Jim Harbaugh's on the sideline tomorrow.
Me too. I feel like that. I mean, because, basically the way, unless I'm misunderstanding, the way that it's been explained is that this restraining order or this injunction will keep those disciplinary actions from taking place for now. That should mean that Jim Harbaugh is ready to coach.
Respond?
I know.
How does Penn State? Is there a situation where if that's the case and Jim Harbaugh shows up because of some legal thing that they're trying to push, is there a case that Penn State opts not to take the field?
Wow.
And if the Big Ten has to step in because Michigan isn't following the ruling from the Big Ten, then to me I could see a scenario where the Big Ten hands Michigan a forfeit. You know what I mean? Like we are again. Anything is possible now at this point.
Yeah.
There is nothing that could happen tonight or tomorrow prior to the game that would surprise me. And that speaks to how absolutely insane and crazy this story has been from the very beginning, from when we first started to learn more about Connor Stallions to the way it was handled by the Big Ten and all the other little parts of this story. It has just been absolutely insane. So who knows? I would just say buckle up and stay tuned and be prepared for anything. And I think most people are.
Yeah. At this point, how could you not be? I mean,
I'm sad.
Vacuum sales.
I'll tell you what, I don't feel like, normally on a situation like this, on the eve of a game like this, of this magnitude, there's this, I remember covering the team last year specifically when they went on their incredible run. You had this feeling. It was like Christmas Eve. It was hard to sleep. You were very excited about it. Just the energy that was flowing through the fan base. And right now, like, it just feels off. It doesn't feel the same. And and I think that's also part of the. I don't want to use the word tragedy to be too dramatic, but it's part of the crappy part of this situation is that it's really taken a lot of the enjoyment of the actual success of the team away. And the only time that ever seems to really go away is when we step on the field and we get to watch them play football. So I'm excited for that tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. We're kind of debating tomorrow. I mean, obviously, win or lose for Michigan, it's a big deal, and the press conference afterwards will probably be a big deal. Of course, Jim Harbaugh being there or not will certainly play into that as well. So we're debating right now on whether we're going to focus on the post-game press conference or if we're going to do a show. Chris is taking off tomorrow too. He's got to get back home. So we've got some moving parts to deal with. But if not tomorrow, 100% we'll be back on the air on Monday. And I mean, dude, I feel like such a broken record. Every time we get off of here, we're like, well, we'll see what the next thing is, and then we'll see again, and we'll start talking about it. And then it's 6 or 8 more weird-ass things, and then we spend 30, 40 minutes talking about it and barely any about the upcoming game. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll talk to you guys tomorrow, if not Monday. Best audience we've had so far. Biggest number that we've had, so we appreciate that from you guys for tuning in and listening to us talk for a little bit. And we'll see how things play out tonight, tomorrow, and into the afternoon.